Shalom, shalom. Blessings to all. So I have a message, I guess, that's really been brewing in my heart for a couple of weeks as I have been looking out of the landscape of this poor country of ours. But should we be surprised? This is a time of trial, right? That is going to come upon the face of the whole earth. We are in a time of trial. Now, I'm going to speak in really big archetypal terms, okay? Because this is truly where, when you get to a point of getting wisdom and understanding the principal thing, Chokmah and Bina, you are able to rise to such a level of seeing, quote unquote, the landscape and what's going on, that you can you can almost see it from God's point of view, like where we are and where we're going. Because the Father does reveal it first to his prophets. Now, what I want to say, first of all, is it's time. This is how I am beginning to interpret, which to me is a synthesis, finally, as I begin to understand, of the house of Judah, the house of Israel, the two houses in their eschatological understanding. There's a huge, for anyone who really studies it, the two houses eschatologically, meaning how the end of the age happens, how the wrap up at the end of the age, the day of the Lord, the day of Adonai happens. There's a lot of disparity. But because the text says that we will be reconciled, this is a promise of Elohim. I'm banking on it, right? I pray into it. I study it. I meditate it. I speak to the Father constantly. This is a passion of mine. How is this going to happen? What does it look like? How do you be part of the process, right? Because if this is where he's going, to the reunification of the whole house of Israel, it would behoove us to be working with our Father, right? The Father finds you having faith on the earth, doing his business, so to speak, as a good ambassador. But this idea of the resurrection, all right, but Hebraically, again, this is a Hebraic text. This is not Greek or Latin. This is not something that Western civilization, kind of devised. This is not the Catholics. This is Hebraic through and through in its orientation, its understanding, because it stems from Hebrew letters that have very defined. They are defined. They're deep. Many of them are hidden. But they're there. You don't need to make anything up. So the standing up is the word in the Greek, because we have I'll take some of the New Testament. They always translate kind of the resurrection, but in its more Hebraic understanding, it is a word that means the standing up, the rising up again. All right. It's the whole thing. If somebody gets knocked down, the whole point of you got to get up again. All right. And Ephraim, and I'm speaking on huge archetypal, like our prophets did. So when I speak to Ephraim, which is the most common term really you can dissect out of the scriptures to describe the northern kingdom, the multiplied seed that is in all the earth, starting from the northern kingdom that was exiled, where their offspring are, who they are, and what their plan is still with the Father. Because he is working out a huge plan of salvation. You have the house of Judah, and you have righteous Gentiles. You have different pockets of people who are about the Father's business. Something you just have to understand this. It's not all about the Jews or all about the Christians. All right. It's a big work. It's about people who want to, hey, bend the knee now. Because now the standing up is very important because I've never seen a time, well, in my lifetime, and I'm sure many people, where we're at these crazy crossroads. Well, what happens, by by January 21st is going to be pivotal for us as a nation, for the world, for the direction of freedom, and much of prophetic, and I say this, the level of prophetic impact you're going to feel is going to stem a lot from things that are going to transpire. But this is a unique time for the two houses to come together and stand up like there's never, ever, ever been. The ground is laid. The stage is set. The players are there. We're all becoming awake, and the stakes could never be higher. And this is our test. When I speak to Ephraim, I'm talking to Christianity because you have been grafted. You were originally grafted back in to the vine that had been growing all along. Judah had been, the older brother kept alive the covenants, the Torah, the language, the temple worship. I mean, Paul gives a whole litany and list. It's very important to understand. The birthright of Abraham through to Isaac, when Jacob bestowed it on his 12 sons, he divided it between in a governmental way, divided between Judah and between Ephraim. Those are facts. They're in the text. I have many teaching this. Many people do. You could not do yourself a better service than taking the time to deeply study and be Berean on these huge concepts, archetypal understandings. But we are coming into a time of strict judgment. If I'm correct, I mean, this is fascinating because the ground has been laid and we can work with the Father on such a degree. It will absolutely astound the nations, absolutely, and change the trajectory of all this. But it's going to take us standing up on our part, and I need to explain what that means. Now, let me go into a couple of things, because one of the major problems today is that most people, our children's children, are biblically illiterate. We are now third generation where, no 10 commandments in the classroom. Most people, you go out on the street, couldn't even tell them to you. Most people have no clue who the players are in the Bible and miss all the large archetypal meaning and truth in these, because we have not been schooled. We have fallen off the wagon big time. So it's hard, but whatever. But one of the things that's been lost today is this whole concept that's through the Bible, because we're standing at a time today where if you want to have the clearest vision, what you're going to see and understand is the nations are facing off. You've got the nations, groups of people that are bound together, by ideology, which is what America is. We're not bound together, obviously, by skin color or by our economic we're bound together by an ideology, and we're bound to that ideology through our Constitution. And that's what's at stake. And Ephraim, you really need to wake up, because this is your moment right now. Seize the day. So one of the things that our fathers, is quote unquote, our ancestors understood, is that, the system is wired. This is why the fear of Elohim is the beginning of wisdom. Nobody gets off scot-free. Nobody. You pay for your sins. This is the whole point. If you fall off the wagon, so to speak, if you don't keep Torah, and by the Torah and by the commandment I'm talking about, there is a foundational, unmistakable, foundational truth. Just go read the book of Deuteronomy. Just pick it up. In fact, I did it again this week, and it was like, on such a simplistic, fresh revelation, I'm going, it's so there. It's so simple. How could we have missed these markers? The 10 Commandments is the covenant at Sinai that we signed, Ephraimite Christian, your ancestors. You obviously have some righteous Gentile and righteous 12-tribe blood, and you are being called back to this covenant, 10 Commandments. If you will keep my word, the Father says, I will keep you as the head of the nations, and you will be a wise and discerning and prudent people, nation, where everybody would say, oh my gosh, look at the wisdom of these people. Look at their God. This is amazing. This is where we're going to end up. This is where the Father's bringing us back to, and it's going to cost us. It's going to cost us, and it should. So let me go back to this foundational concept that the Bible tells us, people, the wicked prey on the righteous. See, this is why I don't know where people got this idea today. This is the whole thing against the millennials or the snowflake concept. Where did you get the idea that there was a perfectly just world out there that you could just waltz into and create? It doesn't work that way. We are in a flat out war against principalities and powers that are stronger than we are. This is what the text tells us. The great epic battle going on every level all the time, interpersonally, or within myself, within my neighbor, within my nation, is one of the sons of God versus the sons of darkness, the sons of light, or the sons of Belial, or the sons of Adonai, the sons of God. All right. There is a contrast, and you will know them, as Yeshua said, by their fruit. Fruit is a word that's talking about some manifestation of something that's growing. When it comes out in its fruit, you can finally figure out what it is. Oh, that's an apple, or that's a strawberry. A lot of times it's hard to see what the plants, the leaves are really going to produce until you see that fruit. That's the idea that Yeshua said, for out of our heart come the issues of life. The things that you finally do in your life, your actions, that is telling you where your soul roots are coming from. Okay. Good actions, bad fruit, obviously coming from bad soul root energies. All right, which is, and I'll get into that, because we need to update our language. We don't need to keep it all archaic, and there are perfectly adequate words today that will help the modern mind relate better. But this fact that the wicked prey on the righteous, we fell asleep at the switch. We didn't really believe. See, this is what happens when you don't really believe that Yahweh means what he says and says what he means, that he is a very just judge. Nobody gets off. God, he'll have mercy. He's loving, these things, but he is a judge. He's just, and he will execute justice in the earth and if he has to do it himself, it's like, watch out. He takes no prisoners. All right. And we are going into a time of very harsh and strict judgment. And it's because, basically we brought this on ourselves. We really need this. And it's a strong medicine. And we're just, the righteous are just going to have to suck it up. And it is a purifier. It will help us. It is going to be a light in our path. The light, the way that we should walk. This is the way, walk ye in it. Now, the wicked plot, it's like in the Psalms 37:12, it says very clearly how the wicked are, and let me just say that the wicked are people who break commandments. Those who murder and lie and cheat and steal and are sexually immoral and practice magic arts. It's not really a huge rocket science study, all right? The Bible is very clear about this. And it really is giving us some extremely important, it's giving us the contrast, all right? If you obey me, you get blessings. If you disobey me, you get curses. And it's very clear what these things are. Again, any child can figure this out. The 10 Commandments and a lot of their large archetypal categorizations. This is why we have 10 is a huge number. It's a decade. It's a perfect subset in every way. There are so many deep reasons why we have 10 commandments, why the Genesis is broken down into 10 sayings. There's so much deep understanding in our text. But Psalm 37:12 is very clear that the wicked plot, they gnash their teeth, their whole, they just hate us. See, this is something we need to understand. Again, not everybody is your friend. Not everybody likes you. Not everybody is out there for your benefit. And you need to be wise and walk circumspectly. But the wicked bring down the afflicted, or it talks about the poor. They want to slay those who are upright. The needy. See, this is why we're needy, we're poor. These collective legions, principalities of like cabals, nests, dens of vipers, a lot of wicked people that pool their resources and prey on good, righteous, decent people. Okay, so this is really important because we have been taking advantage of. The wicked hide behind the righteous. That's what they do. Obviously, okay? They hide, and the only tool that we have that's the light to ferret them out is our commandments. You can shine a light on dark acts, and it's very obvious. And this is something that our Torah sages, the fence that was put around Torah, the deep understanding that our Jewish of the law and what is so comprehensive and so flushed out and so established, and it is the foundation of all Western civilization, and is actually of the East, the nations of East. There has been the Noahide laws, which morphed into the Ten Commandments, are absolutely comprehensive. They tell all peoples how to have a civil body politic together and adhere to God's righteous laws so that everybody can live in a situation where they can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That wasn't just for America. That is basically what Torah says, that anybody, any people, individually, corporately, who will bond together according to these dictates will receive these levels of blessing. Okay? And there is teeth in them. All right, now, but a couple more, like Psalm 37 and 32, it goes on to say, though the wicked lie in wait for the righteous, and they wait in ambush, and they are always looking to assault good morals. See, the reason why it's been this relentless, in our face, the wicked, they just parade their sins in front of us, and it's been going on. I mean, just the whole concept of Hollywood, and now all of it's this whole cyber world that's in front of us constantly. It has so many levels of wickedness to it. They just parade their sin and prey constantly on our bodies, our minds, our souls, and our spirits through their sorceries and their witchcrafts and their sexual immoralities and the rituals and the dark magic they perform that gives them extra power and advantage. This is what's coming out. All right. The Kraken is being released, people. But the funniest thing is it's Yahweh is doing, he's going to do this as a mercy because we cannot do it ourselves. But he is about strict judgment. He is coming to the nations and he is going to execute his law without bribery, which is unfortunately why we cannot get ourselves out of the morass, so to speak, that we're in. But this is, so it's understand, kind of grow up, all right? This culture preys on good morals. It has just about devastated, this is what says Ephraim. They're like a blighted field out in there, where the insects and the worms and the weather is just beating it down. There's no good fruit. It's just a mess of a field not producing anything. That is our landscape today. See, the prophets in their imagery are these archetypes, these are so perfect to describe, all right, a lot of this. But one of the things, so let me just recap for a second. I think I absolutely say this prophetically. We are coming into a season, and see, this is why I teach the tree of life, because this is truly the best wisdom on the planet that the house of Judah has kept us for, to explain deeply, archetypally, how the Father administers his, he would have mercy. He can absolutely have justice, but judgment, but he would rather have justice, which is the perfect balance between mercy and strict judgment. Okay, it's very important for people to understand. In the left side, it is called Gevera. It is literally a sephiroth. It's a place. It's an emanate. This is where the Father reserves the right that he sits on the throne of the judgment seat. And yes, the accuser comes and they have this whole little, I won't go. It's as real as the nose on your face, in a sense, where our deeds are weighed on so many levels according to a concept of Gilgal, another absolutely Hebraic understanding. Everything is a cycle. What goes around comes around. And until we're going to keep going around the mountain until we get it right. But this time we are right where the Israelites were. If we will stand up collectively and say, no, Yahweh is our God and his commandments are our standard. That's our standard bearer to raise it. All right. This is what we will demand from ourselves and what we will demand and implement in the nations. And without that, anything short of that is going to just yield again, chaos, bad fruit. It's not going to get you into the quote unquote promised land. But because it's really interesting. I mean, biblically, if people just learn how to connect like a modern understanding on the landscape with what it's saying biblically, because nothing changes, there's nothing new under the sun. It's always been the nations, or today you could call them the globalists. The globalists who want to live in a standard that is contrary to Mount Sinai, to the Ten Commandments, to the Torah, even nations that don't have any roots there but have the Noahide laws, because every family, tribe of the earth goes back to the Shem, Ham, and Japheth, who knew that this standard, this law is the law of the land. That in the Noahide, all the nations were told you are to have courts, you are to have just courts within your groupings. It was foundational and fundamental. Now, let me just give you a few verses out of Deuteronomy, okay? Because it's, I just think people should just read it again, because it is so clear. There is no reason why we cannot implement all of this. Deuteronomy is our standard. It is our covenant. We can do it. And I'll tell you what, if we don't do it, it will not, let me just put it this way, you're just heaping more tribulation on yourselves, your family, your nation, whatever. So it says in Deuteronomy 16, well, actually, let me go to this other first one. It says, at the time of the end, it says, he will reinstate, oh dear, I thought I had it really marked well. He will call heaven and earth, where he will reinstitute his judges at the end, okay? Because this is how Israel was to rule itself coming into the promised land through judges, right? And this, again, it's very important to understand our branch of government. I have a blog that I'm putting out that goes with this, that'll go into a lot of details too, but the legislative, executive, and judicial is 100% based on how the Father led Israel into a governmental system. That if they would adhere to the law, the Torah, they would be the greatest nation on the planet, and they would be able to lead people to their light, which is Torah, which is these commandments. And all right, so, but it says that he will, here, just let me say, if you go through Deuteronomy over and over and over, the Father is saying he announced to you, Moshe saying his covenant, which he commanded you to keep. Even the 10 commandments, he wrote on 2 stones. And there's a whole deep understanding. The first 2 got broken and it was rewritten. And there's just such deep allegory and spiritual understanding and all about our journey. It's really about our journey, Israel, growing up and being able to take on the mantle. To whom much has been given, much shall be required. If you are going to be the firstborn group on the planet who is to administer in the Father's house, you better be able to keep his own Torah laws, because there's no way, this is the point. If you can't keep them, you have no authority to force other people to do it. Moral integrity comes from within. Your character is your destiny. So it says that he was going to give them these judges again at the end, all right, as he had at the beginning, which is where we are right now. All right, there's no doubt, as we are at the end of the age, where are we? What is everybody looking to? What is the plan? What do they call it? The plan to keep Trump in office. It's to go through the courts. That's not an accident. It's not an accident that we have now literally people who possibly have enough integrity and character and who can think for themselves and will adhere to the Constitution and not accept bribes. This is kind of unique because we got ourselves in a real problem there. But it says, for the Lord your God, he is God of gods. He is the Lord of lords. He is great and strong and a terrible God. If you understand your code, that's really talking about the Father in his strict judgment, his harsh, it's called din, his harsh judgment. All right. He does not, who does not accept persons, nor will he by any means accept a bribe, executing judgment for the stranger and orphan and widow. He loves the stranger to give him food and raiment, and you shall love the stranger. All right. But the point is, he will not accept a bribe. He will execute judgment righteously. He is told over and over, his people, that you will, it says here in Deuteronomy 16:40, thou shalt make for thyself judges and officers, counselors. So is there two? These are legislators. So you have judges who will hear a case, hear a body of evidence, and they will judge it justly according to the righteous law of the Ten Commandments, and they will not water it down. Over and over you read it, that's what the Father says. Look, you better do it right, wholeheartedly. Don't let any of us have it. This is a sword that literally, there are times when it just needs to chop the heads off. And we can keep that totally polemically, absolutely. I'm all about the polemics that is couched in these allegorical words. He says, you shall make for yourself judges and officers in your cities, which the Lord thy God gives thee in thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. They shall not wrest judgment, nor favor persons, nor receive a gift, for gifts blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous. Thou shalt justly pursue justice, that you may live, that you may go in and inherit the land. And it says it again in chapter 17, thou shalt do according to the law and the judgment which they shall declare to thee. Thou shalt not swerve to the right hand or to the left from any of the sentences which they report to thee. And this is the concept, there's the right side of God, the blessing of Elohim, his right hand, his right arm. This is known as his chesed mercy versus his left hand, where literally, he has his chastening angels. He has quote unquote policemen he can unleash to go and bring judgment. And this is what the Bible stories, the judgments that he brought on his own people, because they would get so corrupt and worthless. Judah and Israel, the exiles, the diaspora. This has been an age-old problem that has been dogging the two houses since their institution, and dogged the nations before this. All right, it's called in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they speak of this over and over again. It's referred to kind of allegorically as the three nets of Belial. And there's three major trip-ups that have historically always dogged the people of God. One of it is fornication, is sexual immorality. People, that is such a huge topic. I'm just hoping in the next coming months that I have time to try to really unpack this, and people need to get a grip. We need to understand our level of repentance is so huge. Sexual immorality, fornication, these sins affect nations, peoples, individualized in ways that it's unfathomable. We need to get a grip. The next one is wealth and riches. And again, this is where bribes come in. This is why in the next administration, it is going to be an extreme test for Ephraim. If they can finally overcome their evil inclination. This has been dogging Ephraim, who is the bull, who has a blessing of creating wealth on them. This is one of the things, this is why I say the wicked hide behind the righteous, not because the righteous are so stupid, they don't even know they're carrying this birthright of blessing upon them. The righteous always, the wicked always hide behind the righteous and sap all their strength. This is what the Torah text is telling you. You think you're going to work your fields? Well, the wicked are going to come and steal and eat it all up. They're going to reap all your riches and everything. If you don't keep the Torah at this high level, there's no compromise. All right. The day of Hesed, I call it compassion porn, is over. Too many people today are bleeding heart, stuff that's anti-Torah to begin with. Sexual immorality, and I'm sorry, the whole LGBT lifestyle, this whole thing, you people are out of your minds. You have no Torah mind. You are godless, God denying and God hating in all your lifestyle. And the people of God are going to stand up. You need to stand up and say, no more, we will not take it. You will not push your sin on us so that we receive the judgment too. See, you want to sin, that's fine, and the Father can deal with you, but you will not take us down with you anymore. We need to get wise. So the wealth and the riches is a huge thing. But the other thing is the pollution of the sanctuary. And again, on all of these, there's many levels of meaning, but the pollution of the sanctuary, in a lot of sense, in, again, to the tree of life, we have this nephesh soul life, the life of the flesh. It is in our carnal bodies. They are preying on our bodies today and loves to make us sick. I mean, we are just nothing but little pharmaceutical species that they can just mine and make tons of money off. I mean, I don't think most people do not understand the level of pharmakeia, the level on which they have made us just absolute consumers to their filth, so to speak, which is defiling our sanctuaries, our bodies, our ability to live in this world with health and strength into old age, with fruitful life, many children also growing up into health and strength. If anybody hasn't noticed, they say by 2030, the levels of autism will be like 3 out of 5. Let's just stop playing stupid, people. All right. So we have to overcome these sins, this evil inclination. And the only way we're going to do it is by we ourselves adhering strict judgment right now. We have to stand up. And the thing is, that the Torah, when you read Deuteronomy, the promises of God are yes and amen, and they are true in every generation. That if the people of Elohim will live according to the dictates, the ordinances, the commandments of the Father, he will bless them to the point where they will almost live in a resurrected lifestyle. This is what the Torah says. So the Jews have always had a much more historical, kind of almost a practical understanding. When the standing up happens, and when I say this, I mean literally, Ephraimite, because Judah has been carrying this banner for a long time, but it's time, Ephraim, you embrace this. This is your covenant. You have been grafted back into it. You bear all of the weight and the responsibility of it. It's called the 10 Commandments. They're very clear. The Jews have enough Torah halakha in their house to keep everybody, the greatest minds, busy for many, many years. And as we adhere, we will be transformed. We will be able to make the rose bloom in the desert. Everyone will be lifted. All the nations will be lifted by that. And the nations that don't want to get, and again, nations or individual people or whatever, there is a place, there's swift, harsh judgment. Cut them off, lock them up. This is what is so fascinating, because it's way past. So in today's political scene, I mean, this whole thing that, why should anyone be surprised? I mean, this is what I mean. All right, I wanted to go in to talk about bribes again, because this is just a huge category, all right, which is in the wealth and riches. See, if you take bribes, it isn't just, and we're seeing this. I mean, I don't care if it's influence peddling, you can be part of a crime family, a Bush, Cheney, Obama, Clinton. I don't care what kind of crime family you're part of, all right? The point, the Venezuelan one, what was his, China there are crime families, all right? And these are, and they work, this is the secret power of lawlessness, the deep state cabals that work with each other. It's very real. It's very teethy. It's very nasty and despicable things that these people do, the way they operate, and the way they parade their sin and their chaos and strip us of all of our blessings. I'm just so done with it. But anyways, but either way, whether you take the bribe, but you can look the other way. You can enable. You can profit. You can be a propaganda arm of this. The fake news. I mean, people, by now, I hope people are getting awake to the level that this fake news thing is a very real animal. CNN, the mainstream media, is a tool. It's a propaganda. It is the false prophet speaking, where they are backing up, propping up the beast in all of its different, manifestations. All right. There is definitely two levels of justice, one for them and one for the righteous. And it's not going well for the righteous right now, right? The level of censorship, of actually destruction. I mean, I cannot even believe this is America. I cannot even believe the balls of these people. I'm like, how could you, who just to block some of these accounts, like in Pennsylvania, patriots, constitutionalists, Americans, whether it's from the president or not. I mean, I'm blocked. Most of my, this can go on, and nobody is standing up in utter outrage that some of these liberal-minded people are trying still to defend Google's and Twitter's right to take away our constitutional freedoms right in front of. I mean, you people need to slap upside the hat. I'm sorry. You just, all right. But as it says in Isaiah 125, again, the Father says that he will restore your judges as at first, and your counselors as at the beginning. If we will continue to press in and pray and take the strong medicine and get back on our covenant relationship with the Father, this free love, free grace, we're not under the law, is the most, when you understand it, it's like, how could I have ever believed that? That is, it says, Hosea says that even will just be inheriting lives from their fathers. Yahweh does not change. His laws, his order, do not change. What changes is, okay, the circumstances, and maybe, okay, so it's packaged this way in this generation, and it's kind of packaged a little bit that way. These people are ultimate shapeshifters. But the trick with this is that nationalism is the biblical concept, because he said of all the tribes within all of their jurisdictions, they are to keep just courts that can render just judgments impartially for rich and for poor, for those, whether you're an influence peddler or whether you're just a little needy person on the street. It is administered swiftly, and justly. You have to police your own. This is what the Father is getting at. Otherwise, you're going to have, what? You want a despotic king who just, rides roughshod and implements a draconian, which is what we have today with their compassion porn, and they think they know what's good for us, and obviously they don't. These quote unquote bureaucratic experts. I mean, look what they're foisting on our kids. This they can't even go to school. I mean, so much stuff is coming out, and it will continue to come out because the Father is pouring light, making very clear for people to see. This way is darkness, this way is light. Choose you this day which way you're going to go. You're going to make it really simple. But it is nationalism. It is essential. We are responsible to police our own. America, if you don't get your act and police your own, because this Dominion software issue, this fact that these people have come right into our nations, these globalists, and they have tried to steal this election, and they are trying to literally depose us from our birthright blessing position among the nations and implement themselves at the top. So you better wake up, because this can happen, has happened. The Father will not stop it if it is what you choose. But I believe better. I believe way better for America. And I believe the good people understand this now. We are getting the string. It is time to stand up for righteousness, and not at all. Let them call us what they want. I don't care. I know who I am before the Father. I know exactly. And I know what his Torah commandments are. I know how to do this. It's not, nobody's executing any of this perfectly. We all sin and fall short of the glory. But don't denegate the standard. Like have some fear of God, okay? But it is the Noahide laws that this concept, whether, righteous Gentiles can adhere to this, Ephraim, definitely Christianity. If you think you're part of all Israel, then you better get your act together and you better embrace this covenant. You better read Deuteronomy. You better understand the level of responsibility that is placed upon your shoulders, and you better rise up. You better stand up. And you better embrace your mantle. Because the Father, I tell you, like I said, if the Father has to do this, it's going to be worse. Let me put it that way. All right. And we can see this through Israel's history, where he spared no one, no man, woman, or child. I mean, this is how important these things are, because these things are, it is like a fire that will burn everything. Now, the other thing I have to say, these are the Ezekiel's dry bones. See, this is why, as we come back, Jew and Gentile, Christian, and we affirm the God of Israel is the high God, his covenant, his Torah, his commandments is the standard, is the rule book. And as we begin to empower and put teeth behind it, because what's going to come out, see, this is, we're beyond Republican, Democrat, we're beyond a lot of these artificial divisions that the enemy loves to create. We are into a high level, archetypal level, where it is, again, to each one, choose you this day. All right. And there are going to be more and more teachers on the scene. There's going to be more and more counselors and judges and people who will have the character and the understanding to be a just judge. And we need to let them. That's why it's almost an, and, you know, it's why it could really, it probably is going to end up in tribunal courts. I can now understand, and I can't even believe that some people could have such foresight and understand a lot of these principles so deeply. We will, and as we extract ourselves, America and the United States of America, and then we will position ourselves to, again, be a blessing to the nations, bring them into this light, and totally minimize all of collateral damage. But it's time. I mean, I am done with living in a wilderness. I don't know about you. There's only one way out. So again, in recapping, this thing is in the courts, because as above, so below. The courts of heaven are waiting for the people of Elohim. Many people are doing it, standing up. I encourage you. You have nothing to apologize for. We do not need to cower, to be cowards, or to act grovelly, or to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to offend you. I do mean to offend you for your own good. You better take this stuff seriously, because you know who's coming? The judge, who can not only throw your body into hell, but who can take your soul. That's pretty long term. And that needs to be, you need to contemplate on that for a minute. So again, it's time. Stand up, O righteous one, and the Father will give you light. So on that note, everyone, shalom, shalom, blessings. Like I said, you can't make this stuff up. This is biblical, and we just all got to go along and take the strong medicine.